Hey everyone, today I use Firefighter from Noble Otter soap, and I talk about the First Congregational Church of Spencer, Massachusetts, recently lost. Stay tuned. Cape Cod wet shaving. All right, another day, another shave, everyone. History shave today, Thursday. Coffee of the day, Gevalia. I don't know how to pronounce that. I forgot my umlaut since I took German in high school, but never tried this coffee before. Pretty good, not terrible. Pretty good. A little lighter than I prefer, but. Is what it is. All right, let's get into it. I got a lot to cover today. Today's soap will be Firefighter. I have it blooming, so I just have the lid. From Firefighter from, I almost said Subtle Art soap, from Noble Otter Soap Co. All right. I did forget to write down the scent notes, but luckily he's one of the artisans that puts on the label. It's grapefruit, lavender, red cedarwood, water, sandalwood, ambergris. This is a really good soap. I like it a lot. Very unique, smells very good, unobtainium, I believe. I was one of the last in line to get it, and I think I got one of the last ones to begin with, but it is what it is. I'm going to finish it up with the splash, and any reason to break out one of my favorite Barrister Man fragrances. This is the Sandalwood post-shave balm, which I think will pair very well with it. And I'm going to be using my Subtle Art soap, pre-shave soap bar. Unscented, but I still smell it because it does have a bit of a smell to it. I'll be using that for my pre-shave, all right? Very nice stuff. Hardware, it's going to be Perma-Sharp blades and my Cizo stainless. I don't even know if you can see that on the bottom of the handle. Cizo stainless. Long handle razor. I bought that on a whim on Amazon. Never heard of the company. I don't know anything else from them, but it's a nice razor. I like long handles. And my brush will be my Chisel and Hound. I believe this is called Old Tiger Badger brush. So let's go ahead and get started. Oops. Forgot I don't need water because I have my new sprayer here. This thing's awesome. Should have refilled it with some warm water though. I will. So I don't know if y'all been watching the news. Apparently it's made some national news. But we had a church here in Massachusetts catch fire and burn down, an old church. All right. So it's a combination of this, I think, being a pretty neat opportunity because this church dates back 30 years before the Revolutionary War. It's an old church, okay? It's a combination of that, and then a friend of mine who lives out in Western Mass is where this happened. This church is about 2.5 hours, 3 hours from me. He and his family, it's a multi-generational thing, all went to this church. His grandfather, and I think his great-grandfather, he said, all went to this church that burned down. And again, it's been on the news everywhere. So at the end of this video, I actually have some photos that my buddy took on site. He and his daughter went and visited the ruins of this church. So I'm going to put those at the end of the video. He gave me some permission to do that. Some permission. His permission to do that. So pretty neat. It's very sad. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. All right, so I called this the First Congregational Church of Spencer, the loss of a national treasure, because it really is. It bothered me a little that, you know, the news will mention it's an old church built at this time, and then that's it. And that caught my attention. And then, you know, my friend who knew the church very well, all that made me put my other history shave on the back burner and do this one. So this is for you, man. You and your family. Okay. So at around 3 p.m. on Friday, June 2nd, this past June 2nd, firefighters in Spencer, Massachusetts responded to an automatic fire alarm at the First Congregational United Church. And that is a photo of the church. That's the steeple. Why did I put SS? Sorry, it's photo, steeple on fire, and then in parentheses SS. Oh well, I'll figure it out. That's the steeple on fire. So a fire had actually broken out in the steeple itself. When firefighters entered the building, there was a little bit of smoke, stuff like that. It wasn't noticeably bad yet. But within 45 minutes, the steeple collapsed. 45 minutes from the moment they responded. Okay? Within 2 hours, the entire roof was gone. I mean, the building, after 2 hours, the whole building was immolated. Because this is an old building. Old wooden beams and, you know, it was a wooden building. Very dry old wooden building. Let me go ahead and transfer some water from the blooming soap into my mug. Here's a photo of the, let me see. Yeah, here's a photo. Sorry, this is a collage of the steeple burning and falling over. And the steeple actually tipped over like a tree and collapsed into the roof. And that's what that's a photo of. You'll have to bear with me. I wrote this out last night while I was pretty tired. Well, I started it a couple days ago. But I finished it last night and I was just completely out of it last night. Because of the baby. Oh yeah, quick baby update. He doesn't like to sleep. He's really giving Jess and I hell. My sleep pattern now is to be up I stay up with him generally till about 1 in the morning, maybe later. If I get up later. Last night I was up with him until about 1:30. And he actually did quite well last night. And then Jess gets up, relieves me. And then I take the kids to school. And depending on how she's doing, she'll either go back to bed or she'll just stay up for a while. Till around lunchtime. And then she'll go to sleep. So, you know, it's just, wow, wait, I put too much water in this. That sucks. It's a waste of soap. Get it together, John. Where was I? Oh, so he's kicking our asses. You know, he's a baby. That's what babies do. I really screwed up this soap, man. I can't believe I just did that. I had way too much water. So now give me a sec whilst I lather like I'm new at it. And for those who don't know, Noble Otter soaps are a bit on the harder side. So I purposely add a little more water than I normally would, but I added way too much water. So now I'm going to have to balance this. I just had to pour some soap down the sink. That sucked. So nearly 100 firefighters from 20 stations responded. But unfortunately, the church was a total loss. And boy, was it. It's a crater in the ground now. The cause was most likely due to a lightning strike. If you can believe that. Because the fire started in the steeple. Thankfully, it wasn't arson or anything ridiculous. Well, I don't know, lightning strike is kind of ridiculous, but at least it's a natural phenomenon. This church, here we go. This church dates back to the year 1743. Okay, 1743 is 33 years before independence, before 1776. The land the church was built upon was donated by a wealthy merchant named Nathaniel Cunningham. I did branch off, start looking into him, and I just got lost in that, so I'm going to leave it at that. Because as you know, and I always say on here, it just leads to want to learn other stuff, and then you just probably find yourself off topic. So, here we go. It's better. Oh, I should have shown you that lather I had. It's still too thin. Look at that. Oh well, I'll thicken it up. What a mess. The original land was part of a town called... I'm laughing because it's pronounced Leicester, but it's spelled, true to form, in Massachusetts, L-E-I-C-E-S-T-E-R. So I was calling it Leicester, like Worcester, Worcester. Or, you know, they pronounce things oddly here. Welcome to Worcester. In fact, my buddy John Kearney in Ohio lives in a town called Wooster, Ohio, W-O-O-S-T-E-R. And when I first asked him where he lived, he said, we live in Worcester, except it's spelled right. Like Worcester, Mass, but spelled right. Pretty funny. How you doing, John? Haven't talked to you in a while, bud. You've been busy. His kids are wrestlers, so he's actually been traveling, state champion wrestling. So he's been traveling all over the place between that and working, so he's just been busy. Hope he doesn't mind me mentioning that. All right, the original land was part of a town called Leicester. Spencer would not be established until 1753, so 10 years later. The original church was a little more than a barn. This is not a photo of the actual church. Obviously, that's impossible looking at the time. But this is to give you an idea of what it would have looked like. Okay? There were unplaned walls, no plaster, and only a subfloor. There were also no pews. So for a church and nowhere to sit, kind of odd. But that was the original church, which I assume was just constructed for the sake of having one. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the mustache. I've been skipping it the last couple of times. I don't know why. It's messy, but get some skin food down to the roots. All right. Man, 12 minutes in. So it was at that time the second church of Leicester, when it was the barn, not the first church. Perma-sharp blade, first use. By the way, this is a pretty mild razor. I don't know if anyone else has ever heard of it. Just for the price, I think it was like 30 bucks. Stainless steel, satin finish. Almost certainly Chinese. That's all right. Very nice razor. Hefty. Okay. So a church society was formed on May 17th, 1744. So right after the church began. Drop my towel. On November 7th, Reverend Joshua Eaton was ordained as the church's first minister. He would serve for 27 years and is actually buried to this day behind, well, the church. He's still buried there. There's no church anymore. See what I mean? It's so sad. Quick side story that I was told too. And I'm purposely being vague about who this is, as per their request. It is a member of the shave community, but I said I was going to dedicate the video to you, and then they're just like, you don't have to do that. I said, all right, fair enough. And it's not like a privacy thing. I think it's just more not to take away from what the video's about, I think, knowing him. But he told me how he talked to someone he knows in the town who walked by the church while it was, and was there while it was burning. And they were walking their dog past this pine tree, this big old pine tree right there near the church. And the fire burned so hot that one side of the tree was scorched black and barren, and the other side still green and alive. And the interesting thing is that they had said there was one lone fire truck assigned to that one tree. And the reason being is because past that tree were several other trees. It was the start of, you know, basically some woods, and those woods led to a neighborhood. So if that tree had gone up, the rest of the trees would have gone up, which means it would have been a domino effect leading to a neighborhood, and then they would have had a real problem. So I found that interesting. That imagine being a firefighter and you see your brothers over there fighting a fire and you got to stand there next to a tree and you're just like, oh man. I mean, duty's duty. You're told to do something, you do it. But still. Interesting. That's how big this fire was. There we go. That ladder's getting better now. Just sit and let it age. Like a nice scotch. All right. So a larger building was constructed in 1772. All right, the church had taken off. The population obviously had probably gone up, so they needed to upgrade. So they did. A steeple and bell were added in 1802. In 1820, a church school was formed, one of the first in the nation. So a school based on the church. Christian school, I'm assuming. One of the first in the country. Which I think that would have been one of the first things they did upon settling here. But then, of course, schooling around that time was done at home. This is up to the parents to do that themselves. There we go. On January 1st, 1862, the original church, if you can believe this, was destroyed by fire. The church that burned down was built and dedicated in 1863. So the church that was just on the news has been there since 1863. The church itself and the location have been there since 1743. Everything's in threes with this church, isn't it? Burned down in 2023. 2023. 2003 was a crazy year. That's when I joined the Coast Guard. All right. So more additions came in 1881, including a parlor, which is now a library, presently, a kitchen, a 40-foot extension, and an interior remodel. And with that interior remodel, they actually changed which direction the front of the church faced, if you can believe that. They didn't pick up the building and move it, but they rebuilt the building to where it like turned. So the way the church faced, the present one, was done on purpose. Not sure why, but it was. So the last major addition came in 1993, which was an elevator. Okay, and this is some artwork of the modern day church that burned down. The church, unfortunately, was a total loss. And its future is unknown. I don't know if they're going to take up collections or a GoFundMe to rebuild it. I hope they do. I mean, that easily has to be one of the oldest churches in the country. And for it to not be rebuilt, even if as not a church, even if it's not a functioning church, just rebuild it. and have it put on the registry. Make it a museum. Something. But it made more news than I thought it would, honestly. Which I was glad to see. But again, you know, just people's priorities aren't what they used to be. I think that was buried under the CEO of CNN stepping down or something. It's a big deal local, but you know, a church that's older than the country burns down. I think that should be talked about a little bit, in my opinion. But here's a photo. This isn't oh God, I just drew a blank. This is an actual photo, is what I was going to say. This is a real photo of the burned out Hulk after the fire was extinguished. I mean, it's toast. And from what they said, they had to cover it to prevent asbestos in the ruins from going into the air and circulating around. So, very sad. You know, you don't like seeing stuff like that. But I thought it was important. And one thing I'll note is I do make it a point not to be political on here, not to push religion. I mean, I'll say thank God or something like that, but I won't go, you know, full on sermon. So I am aware this is a church. But I thought it was important. If it had been a Jewish temple, I would have treated it the same way. I got some flack, a little bit, not terrible, from one of the World War II videos I did, the Black Baron, about the SS officer who was the tank commander. And just one thing I'll say is, you know, history is not biased. History is just history. It doesn't pick a side. And just because you don't like it doesn't change it. So it is never my intent to offend with these, ever. I might withhold some stuff that's violent. It'd be a fact the next one I have is pretty up there as far as grisly details being left out. But it's never my goal to offend. So hopefully I don't. Okay. Touch-ups are finished. Let me rinse this off. I'll do post-shave. Be right back. You want to hear a dad joke? What happened when the astronomer bumped his head? He was seeing stars. I think that was my daughter that told me that. My daughter has fully embraced the beauty behind dad jokes. I never thought I'd be that dad. If you'd asked me when I was like 19 years old, I would have been like, dude, you need to get away from me. Because you're asking me like stuff about when I'm going to be a dad and I'm only 19. Realistically. However, I would have never, ever thought I would do the dad joke thing. I fully love it. So it just dawned on me. I didn't talk about the scent of the soap. It's very woody. Citrus on top. The splash is far more citrusy. You get the grapefruit much more out of the splash than you do the soap. So I learned that it's harder to attach fragrance to solids than it is to liquids. Go figure, that makes sense. But you definitely get the red cedarwood and the sandalwood. The lavender, I don't think I even get lavender really. That's really weird. I always say that. And lavender is a very prominent fragrance. In fact, it's one I do not like on its own. I just can't do lavender by itself. It has to be mixed with stuff. But oddly, case in point, I love fougères. In fact, I have Zingari Man's new collaboration she did with Rogue on its way. So, can't wait to try that one. Oh, I have very much gotten into fougères. Man, that burned. Ooh, oh boy, that burned. Good stuff. I love that burn. I don't mind witch hazel, man, but I love the alcohol burn. I used to hate it. I remember getting into this. I don't understand how people loved it. Nothing like it, in my opinion. This refreshing part of the shave. Oh my goodness. Okay. You absolutely get, you still get some of the cedarwood, but you absolutely get the grapefruit. Grabbed the wrong thing. Almost put beard wash on my face instead of my balm. Don't know why I reached for that over this. All right. Get the dried chunk out there. That's gross. And I sprayed too much, I believe, which I usually am prone to do. So the church, let me show those photos real quick, all right? I'm going to go ahead and just superimpose them over my face. It's easier. There's about 6 of them. So, starting now. So they took these. I'm not going to include the photo with their daughter, with his daughter. But this was on site when he took these, the aftermath. And it's just complete devastation, as you can see. And the town, again, I don't know what they're going to do with it. Maybe you can take a piece of it. Again, maybe rebuild it and just, even if you don't use it as a church anymore, at least build a little memorial or a plaque, make it a little park talking about, you know, what was there and the history behind it. Something's better than just clearing it and leaving it a barren, vacant lot with little burnt wood chips scattered around. That's my opinion anyway. My 2 cents. So there you go. Not super exciting, but I thought it was very important to at least throw a historic nod towards it, to recognize it for what it is. And it's a huge chunk, not really of just Americana. I think Americana is more, isn't that more like hot dogs and stuff like that? Like something that's purely American? I think that's what Americana is. It's a piece of the history of the nation before even we had a nation. So I thought it was important to mention. So anyway, all right, that'll do it. And for obvious reasons, I picked Firefighter. It's a nod to the, you know, the men and women that do it, obviously, but 100 firefighters and 20 stations responded to it. Must have been a sight to see. But all right, everybody, I really appreciate you guys watching these. I'm generally a little less on energy, a little more less. Yeah, I generally have less energy than normal. And so that's why I'm not as chipper, I'm not as loud as usual. So bear with me, that won't last forever. And again, if you're returning to these, I appreciate it. If you watch it to the end, I definitely appreciate it. I know these are a long time, but I have fun doing them. Hopefully you have fun watching them. Thanks again. And Monologue Monday, next Monday, all goes well. I will see you then. All right. Y'all take care. Have a great weekend. Take care of one another. And yeah, I think that's about it. Take it easy. Happy shaving. Till next time.